What's up, squad? This is Brandon from the Bantu Sun. Thank you so much for joining me today. There is a lot of crazy things happening in the world right now, and a lot of it centered around the United States. Whether you're talking about migrant protests out in California, whether you're talking about trade deals and tariffs that are going on across the world, primarily United States and China, and this increasing energy under the Trump administration that America is no longer a place you can go for liberal trade, but they're turning back into a protected market. You have wars, whether you're talking about Russia and Ukraine and the inability to get these two sides at the table. You're talking about Israel and Iran and the increasing hostility there. I made a video about my thoughts on that one, of course, but a lot of people are concerned about that conflict. So you have all these areas of contention in the world as America is trying to put the reins on the world going amok. And quietly, what's occurring is not that many people are talking about what's going on in Central Asia, where you have a C5+1 meeting. And this is going to be China meeting with the five Central Asian countries. The five Central Asia countries being Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan, Tajikistan, and Kyrgyzstan. So all of these countries were known to be part of the former Soviet Union. They have an Islamic, religiously leaning, and they're sitting right there in the middle of Asia. And one of the messages I push is about the geopolitics of the 21st century and the threat that the Crypt Six pose to the West. The Crypt Six in their own right, each country in their own right, but that's China, Russia, India, Iran, Pakistan, and Turkey. And as you can see, these five countries are nestled right in the middle of all of these countries, all of these six nations. So, and these six nations are going to be competing for influence because of their geostrategic importance. China could be anywhere. If you put the five Central Asian economies together, it will be a quarter of Germany's. So it's not necessarily an economic win that China can really get from these Central Asian countries, but geostrategically, from a geographic point of view, there is very few regions in the world that China is in or should be as invested in as Central Asian. Is Central Asia, Southeast Asia, this is China's strategy. It feels comfortably on this eastern or northeastern flank with North Korea. Two of China's biggest allies, or most legacy allies, are going to be North Korea and Pakistan. So these five Central Asian countries, it all goes back to, it was really revealed going back to colonial times, where it was a great game with the British and the Russian Empire trying to compete within this region for influence amongst these countries. Each country has their a little distinction that makes it authentic in its own way, whether you're talking about the geographic location of Kyrgyzstan being right there at the gate of China to that silk trade going west, or Tajikistan, where you have that Persian influence still within deep into the Central Asian area with the Tajiks. You have Uzbekistan, the demographic center of Central Asia. 45% of the Central Asian population of these five countries live in that Fergana Valley, live within Uzbekistan. You have Turkmenistan, this energy giant along the Caspian Sea, sharing that sea with likes of Azerbaijan and Iran, other great energy giants as well. With Turkmenistan, it's going to be natural gas. And then, of course, you have Kazakhstan, which is the world's largest landlocked country by area, of course, full of natural resources. They have the Space Center, amongst many other things. And this meeting, this summit, the C5+1 summit, is taking place in Kazakhstan at the moment. So this really highlights as China is trying to take that next step as a global power player in its own way, and really stepping up and building relationships within this region. This region has been highly contested for Asia. It's been politically contested with the Soviet Union. is historically contested, where you're talking about the lineage and the blood ties with with Turkey and the Turkish people. You have the cultural influence of the Persians and Iran throughout this region. And of course, China is pushing its economic agenda within this region. And its economic agenda is to establish satellites within this region. And I don't mean that in a bad way, but as a point of contention that through economic means, China feels as though they can build up a lot of alliances within its region. And I think the knock that China has, that it has not proven yet, and which I think is a real challenging point for any aspiring power, is the West has always done a good job of elevating other countries. And that's been proven time and time again. And when I say the West, I'm primarily talking about that Anglo-Dutch heritage, whether you're talking about European influence in South Africa. South Africa to this day is one of the wealthiest per capita countries in Africa. It's no coincidence that they're also one of the larger beneficiary of the Dutch Germanic groups or Western European peoples in South Africa and the entire continent of Africa. Look at the development of former enemies of Germany and Japan, both bombed to smithereens in World War II. Germany, it was Dresden. Japan, it was a tragedy of Hiroshima and Nagasaki and the atomic bomb. What did America do? It mended fences and opened up its markets to allow these countries to develop. Can anybody rival what America has done with South Korea and the level of development that South Korea has achieved? And I know everybody has seen that map of the world at night comparing South Korea and North Korea. Basically, what I'm saying is the West has proven through economic alliances with it, it can help you develop your economy. Not only will America open its economy to its allies, but it will also take its allies with them to the point where Americans buy German cars and have no contention with it. Americans buy Japanese cars and have no contention with it. But not only that, where can you go where you can't find a Toyota? So Germany and Japan, depending on what year you're taking, you're talking about they're number 3, 4, 5, or 6 of the top global economies in the world. These are from 2 defeated nations in World War II. And through their partnership with the West, they have risen to be some of the most powerful economies in the world. Has China proven it can do that? I think they have not. I see amazing videos coming out of China with some of the spectacular cities that they're building there. They look amazing, but I can't point to other countries where China has been able to replicate that, where Chinese investment has been able to replicate that, where Chinese trade has been able to replicate that. And you look at China's most legacy allies, it's North Korea and Pakistan. China, North Korea, and Pakistan. What do these countries have in common? Strong authoritarian rule, strong domestic, military, intelligence presence. These what these countries have in common, one can say from the outside looking in. And you have to say, is it an appealing model for other countries? Do other countries want to get behind that? Some do and some don't. But the point of the matter is, did the vast majority of the people accept being a China ally if you tell them in 50 years they look like North Korea? Or you can say in 50 years you look like South Korea. Which country would a nation prefer? And that's subjective. It's not for me to answer, but what I'm saying is I'm citing precedent. And I think one thing that's stopping China from really being that go-to nation, that one that people look up to look for trade with, is China's not having a precedent of developing a nation to a significant degree. And this is their opportunity. China has 3-4 times population of America. China has a domestic economy, but is it willing enough to be vulnerable enough to have its neighbors open up its economy to its neighbors, for its neighbors to come peel a piece of their domestic economy, which would allow them to flourish proportionally in their home countries? Can China develop the nations of Southeast Asia? Can China bring nations in Southeast Asia and Central Asia along on its rise to the top? And I think that is yet to be seen. And on another note, strategically, it's only a matter of time for this region heats up. Russia is not going to want to lose its influence, despite its waning influence. Russia is going to want to still try to compete for Central Asia. Turkey is going to try to compete for Central Asia. And as you can see, China is already trying to make inroads. So I think this is still the great game. This is still British versus Russian Empire within Central Asia because it's such a geographically, strategically important place in the world. And we'll see how the game will be played. But the point of the matter is, but the big question is going to be, can other countries win with China? So those are my thoughts. If you have any insight, I'd love to hear below. Please comment below. Like, share, subscribe if you enjoyed the content. Until next time, take care. Bantu up.